The midnight knock. Jace sat alone in his metal quarters, the walls cold and silent. Outside, the winds of planet Velthora howled like lost souls. It was past midnight. The sky was black, and two moons hung low like tired eyes. Jace liked the quiet. After years of war, silence was a gift. He sipped a cup of lukewarm synth coffee and stared at the small fire flickering in his heater unit. He didn't expect anyone. No visitors came to this part of the outpost. He was stationed here alone, far from command, far from trouble. Then it happened. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks on the heavy steel door. Jace froze. No one should be here. Not at this hour. Not on this planet. He checked the surveillance monitor. Static. Just static. His fingers slowly moved under the table, gripping the cold handle of his plasma pistol. His heart thudded against his ribs. Was it a trick? Had someone followed him from the last mission? He stood up quietly and walked to the door. His boots made no sound on the metal floor. He tapped the keypad on the wall, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Standing there were 5 alien women. Tall, silent, eyes glowing softly in the darkness. Their skin shimmered in strange colors, blue, silver, and deep violet. They wore tight armor with sharp designs, unlike any Jace had seen before. They looked like warriors, deadly ones. Jace said nothing. Neither did they. Then the one in the center stepped forward. She had short silver hair, piercing red eyes, and a scar that ran down her cheek like a knife's signature. Her presence was cold, dangerous. Without a word, she entered the room. The others followed. Jace's hand stayed near his weapon, but he didn't draw. Not yet. "Can I help you?" he asked, trying to stay calm. The leader turned to him. Her voice was low and smooth. "You've been chosen." "Chosen? For what?" Jace replied, frowning. She didn't answer. Instead, the 5 women spread out in the room. One inspected the heater. Another looked at his books. The youngest stared at the stars through his window. They moved like shadows, quiet and quick. Jace felt like a mouse in a room full of snakes. "I didn't invite you," he said firmly. The leader gave a small smile. "This is not a visit. It's a test." "A test? What kind of test?" She walked up to him, close enough that he could see a small symbol glowing on her neck, an Tyrene war mark. Jace's breath caught in his throat. The Tyrene were feared across 5 galaxies. Ruthless, cold, never known to play games. "What are you testing me for?" Jace asked again. "To see who you really are," she said softly. Then suddenly, the lights flickered. The room went dark for a few seconds. A strange hum filled the air. And then, a scream. It was sharp, quick. It came from the far side of the room. The lights came back on. Only 4 alien women stood in the room now. One was gone. Jace's eyes darted across the room. "What just happened?" he asked. No one answered. The leader looked at him with cold eyes and said, "The test has begun." Jace gritted his teeth. This was bad. Really bad. He wasn't sure what kind of game this was, but he knew one thing. By dawn, something was going to change. And it might just be him. A game of power. Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat in the corner of his quarters, back against the cold wall, plasma pistol hidden beneath his coat. The 4 alien women moved around like ghosts. No one spoke. No one explained why one of them had screamed, or where she had gone. But she was gone, vanished without a trace. The leader, the silver-haired one with the scar, now took control of the room like she owned it. She watched Jace from across the table with eyes that didn't blink. Her name, he learned from the youngest one, was Commander Syraxa, and she was the most dangerous Tyrene female in their entire system. Jace had heard of her during the war. A commander who once brought down an entire human fleet using only ground-level tactics. No mercy, no survivors. He had read about her in classified files, files marked with red stamps that said, "Avoid all contact." Now she was sitting in his quarters, uninvited, unexplained. Saraxa finally spoke after hours of silence. "You're wondering why we're here," she said in her cold, steady voice. "I was wondering that 6 hours ago," Jace replied, eyes narrow. She didn't smile. "You were selected. The Council of Observers wants answers about human nature, and you're the subject. Why me?" "You're not like the others," she said, folding her arms. "We've seen your files. You disobeyed a direct kill order during the siege of Mira Colony. You saved alien civilians, even when it made you a traitor to your own command." "That was interesting." Jace clenched his jaw. "So this is about that?" "It's about more than that," Saraxa replied. Another alien woman stepped forward. She had pale blue skin and yellow eyes. She introduced herself as Veran, a scout and a combat strategist. She placed a small black cube on Jace's table. It flickered and then projected holographic data. Jace saw images of himself, walking, eating, sleeping, even old videos from years ago. Some were private. Some were from places he thought were never recorded. "You've been watching me?" he asked, anger rising. "For months," Veron answered. "You're part of an ongoing experiment, a test of boundaries." Jace stood up, fists tight. "That's not a test. That's stalking." Suddenly, the youngest alien, Lione, started coughing. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. Her skin began to glow a strange orange color. The other aliens rushed to her, but Saraxa stopped them with a wave of her hand. "Let it happen," she said coldly. Jace couldn't believe what he was seeing. "She's dying." "No," Saraxa said. "She's transforming." Jace watched as Lione's body shifted. Her armor cracked and melted away. Her eyes rolled back. And then she fell still. Silence filled the room. Then, without warning, she disappeared. No light, no sound, just gone, just like the one before her. Jace stepped back, breathing heavily. "What the hell is this?" "We told you," Saraxa said. "This is a test." "You're killing your own team," Jace shouted. "They were never just team members. Each one of them has a personal stake in this. You're not the only one being tested." "What does that mean?" Saraxa walked slowly toward him, stopping just inches away. "Some of us are being tested for compatibility, emotion, loyalty, restraint." Jace stared at her. "Compatibility." She nodded. "Not every war ends with weapons. Sometimes it ends with understanding, or something stronger." Jace felt like the floor had dropped beneath him. He turned toward the door, heart racing. He had to get out. He had to tell someone. This wasn't just a test. It was a trap. Something deeper, stranger, and very wrong. He reached for the panel beside the door. Saraxa's voice stopped him. "The door won't open." Jace turned slowly. "Why not?" "Because you're not finished yet," she said. "None of us are." He tried the panel anyway. Dead. No response, just a red error light. He ran to his comm device. Static. No signal. He tried the emergency beacon. Dead too. Everything was jammed. That's when he realized it. They had planned this from the start. The entire outpost was under alien control. They were never going to let him leave, not until this strange experiment was over. And whatever was happening, it was going to get worse before dawn. That night, Jace didn't sleep. He didn't even blink. Because now, only 3 alien women remained, and he was trapped with them. Mind games and whispers. Jace hadn't moved from the corner of his room since the second disappearance. He kept his eyes on the 3 remaining alien women, but especially on Commander Saraxa. She sat calmly on the edge of his small bunk, cleaning a curved blade with a cloth made of thin black fiber. Her focus was terrifying. Not once did she look at Jace. She didn't need to. She already knew he was watching her. The two other alien women, Veron and a quiet one named Male, stood silently on either side of the room. They hadn't spoken in hours. Mele's expression was unreadable, her silver eyes dull and unblinking. Jace's body was tense, his mind racing. No food, no water, no way to contact the outside world. The room felt smaller with each passing hour. At exactly 300 hours, the lights flickered again. This time, it wasn't darkness that followed, but whispers, soft, floating through the room like the wind. Jace turned his head quickly. The whispers weren't in English, not even in any alien language he recognized. They were, inside his mind, echoing, strange, familiar. He clutched the sides of his head, trying to shut them out. Syraxa stood and walked toward him. "You hear them now," she said, almost gently. What is that?" Jace asked, his voice hoarse. "It's the memory code," she replied, "triggered by proximity. It only happens when the human mind reaches a certain emotional level." "You're doing this to me," he shouted. "No, you're doing it to yourself," she replied calmly. "Your fear is unlocking parts of your memory that have been locked away. You've forgotten more than you remember." Jace looked up, confused and angry. "What are you talking about?" "Do you remember Project Emberfall?" she asked quietly. The name hit Jace like a punch to the chest. He staggered back. That project was classified. Shut down years ago. Syraxa's red eyes glowed faintly. "No, Jace, it was never shut down. It was hidden. Varied. You were one of the first test subjects. You just don't remember." Jace's breathing grew shallow. His hands trembled. His mind began flashing. Images of a different place. A bright white lab. Voices. Screaming. Needles. A child crying. A soldier holding a broken helmet. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. "You're lying," he whispered. Syraxa leaned in close. "Am I?" Just then, Veron stepped forward. She handed Jace a small cube. It lit up and projected a memory. A younger Jace, strapped to a metal chair, electrodes on his head. A voice spoke in the video. "Subject 14 shows resistance to pain. Memory wiped to proceed at level 5. Jace fell to his knees. His entire past was a lie. "I don't understand," he muttered. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because the test was never about us," Syraxa said. "It was always about you." "Then why did one of your own disappear?" Jace snapped, standing up, rage returning. "Why is this happening to all of us?" Male finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, soft like falling snow. "Because each of us has something we want to forget. But in this room, nothing stays buried." Jace looked at her. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes were full of pain. You didn't volunteer for this, did you?" he asked her. She looked away. "No." The room went quiet again. Then, without warning, Male collapsed. Her body hit the ground with a soft thud. No scream this time. Just silence. Her body shimmered, then faded. Now only 2 alien women remained. Jace backed away, shaking his head. "You said you're not doing this. So what is? What's killing them?" "It's not death," Syraxa said. "It's truth. Some truths break the body when the mind refuses to accept them." "And you?" Jace said, voice shaking. "What truth are you hiding from?" Syraxa didn't answer. Instead, she walked over to the wall and opened a hidden panel. Inside was a small glowing orb, purple, humming, alive with energy. Jace narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" "It's a memory stabilizer," she replied. "And it's the last one we have." She handed it to him. "If you use it," she said, "you'll see everything. No more lies. No more blocked memories. You'll know who you are, who you were meant to be." Jace looked at the orb in his hand. He could feel it pulsing, almost like a heartbeat. And he was scared. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he wanted to know. That night, Jace didn't sleep. He sat by the wall, orb in hand, watching the shadows stretch across his quarters. Now there were only two of them. And Syraxa's eyes never left him. The hidden room. Jace sat with the glowing orb in his hand for hours. It pulsed softly, warm against his skin, like a tiny living heart. The silence in the room was deep now. Too deep. Only Syraxa remained, sitting quietly near the heater unit, sharpening her blade slowly and precisely. She hadn't spoken since she handed him the orb. He hadn't either. His mind raced. Who was he? Really? How could he forget years of his own life? And if he was part of Project Emberfall, what had they turned him into? Jace finally stood up. The orb floated from his hand and hovered midair, casting a purple light on the walls. He stared into it. Shadows danced across the room, and the floor beneath him felt like it was shifting. "Show me," he whispered. The orb responded instantly. A burst of light filled the space, and suddenly, the walls around him changed. Not physically, but through some kind of projection. Or maybe, a memory. The metal walls melted into smooth black stone. Cool, ancient, and carved with strange symbols. Then came the voices. Not whispers this time. Real. Familiar. Subject 14 is unstable. Increase dosage. Stabilize the emotions. If he remembers, the whole program will collapse. Jace's eyes widened. He saw a lab room, cold and white. Scientists in armor. He saw himself, much younger, strapped down, screaming as something was injected into his spine. Then, in a flash, he saw Syraxa. But not as she was now. She was in the same room, watching from behind a glass wall. She wasn't wearing armor. She looked softer, sad, human-like emotions on her face. She had known him before. The vision ended with a sharp pulse of pain in Jace's head. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. Syraxa rushed to him, but didn't touch him. "Breathe," she said softly. "You were there," Jace growled. "You saw what they did to me." "Yes," she said. "You did nothing." "I wasn't allowed to," she said. "Back then, I wasn't a commander. I was a scientist, part of the Joint Human Serene Research Program. I studied emotional bonds. They used me just like they used you." Jace looked at her with rage in his eyes. "You watched them break me." Syraxa looked away, and I never forgave myself. A long silence passed between them. Jace stood up slowly, fists clenched. "Why are you here now?" he asked. "Why this test? Why lock me inside this nightmare?" Syraxa walked toward the wall and pressed a hidden panel. A loud click echoed. The metal shifted, and a door opened. Behind it was a small hidden room, filled with strange devices and blinking lights. Screens showed images of Jace's quarters from every angle. Surveillance, monitors, notes in alien script. There were dozens of files, most labeled with his name. Jace stepped in. He saw something that made him freeze. On one of the screens, there was a live feed of him, but not just sitting. It was him sleeping, in a different room, from years ago. And then another screen showed him crying. Another, training. Another, bleeding on a battlefield. The footage stretched back over a decade. "You've been watching me for 10 years, he asked, barely able to speak. Syraxa nodded slowly. "Not me. The Council. I broke away from them. That's why I came here. This test, this moment, was my choice." "Why?" Jace asked. Syraxa stepped closer, her voice softer now. "Because I needed to see if the human I once believed in still existed." Jace stared at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I once thought humans were violent, selfish, broken creatures," she said. "But then I saw you, during the Emberfall trials. You refused to follow cruel orders. You showed mercy, even when they tried to train it out of you. Her voice cracked. And I admired that. Jace's heart beat faster. He didn't know what to feel. Rage, sadness, confusion, or something deeper. But why did your people disappear? He asked. Liani. Male. The others. Were they real? Some were, she said. Some were sent by the council. Some were projections, designed to push you, break you, or bring you clarity. And the one who screamed. She wasn't supposed to vanish. That part was real, Saraxa admitted. Something else is happening here now. Something beyond even me. Jace stared at the screens again. One of them showed a countdown, 3 hours left until sunrise. And one message flashed red at the bottom of the screen. Final evaluation. Emotional bond, not yet complete. Jace pointed at it. What does that mean? Saraxa looked at him. It means they won't let us leave. Until you make a choice. What kind of choice? Her eyes softened. To hate me, or to forgive me. Jace turned away, overwhelmed. Every wall he had built was cracking. Every truth he thought he knew was falling apart. But there was no more running. Because the door was sealed. The stars outside were still dark. And now, only one alien woman remained. The truth about Saraxa. The countdown on the screen kept ticking. 2:47:59. Jace sat alone inside the hidden room. The walls were covered with files, footage, and memories that didn't feel like his. But they were. Every second he spent inside that room, something new came back. Not because he wanted it to, but because the orb, the voices, and the silence forced him to remember. Behind him, Saraxa waited. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply stood by the door, her arms folded, her face unreadable. Jace stared at one video in particular. It was a dim, shaky recording. It showed a younger version of himself, maybe 19, walking down a dark hallway. Behind him, a shadow, a figure, a woman. He clicked on it. The camera zoomed in. The woman stepped forward. Silver hair, a scar, red eyes. It was her. Saraxa. But she looked different then. Softer. No armor. No command voice. Just a scientist holding a datapad and watching him. You were there from the beginning, Jace said quietly. Saraxa nodded. Yes. Why didn't you stop them? He asked. I couldn't, she replied. Back then, I didn't have power. I was part of the behavioral observation team. My job was to study you, to report, not interfere. But you did interfere, Jace said, turning to her. You kept files hidden. You blocked one of the injections. I saw it on the logs. Saraxa stepped forward, slowly. I broke the rules, she said, because I started to care. That word hit Jace like a shock. Care, he echoed, bitterly. You cared while they erased my memories. You cared while they tortured me in the name of science. I didn't know it would go that far, she said. I thought we could learn to understand each other. That maybe one human could prove we weren't enemies forever. Jace stood up, his fists shaking. I was a test tube to them. No, Saraxa said, her voice cracking. You were hope. The first human to pass the empathy trials. The first human to resist orders to kill a harmless being. You showed something we didn't expect. Jace turned back to the screen, silent. Another memory came. This time, not a video. A real memory. Inside his head. He was lying on the cold floor of a lab, his body shaking, his thoughts fading. But someone had knelt beside him. Someone had touched his face and whispered in a language he didn't understand. He saw her clearly now. It had been Saraxa. You tried to protect me, he whispered, eyes wide. Saraxa nodded. They found out. They removed me from the project. That's when I joined the military. That's when I became what I am now. And now? Jace asked. What are you now? Saraxa took a deep breath. She stepped close. I'm still someone who wants peace, but I've learned the council doesn't believe in peace. Not really. They want control. They want to see if love can be manufactured, if loyalty can be measured. They used me as much as they used you. Jace looked into her eyes. For the first time, he didn't see a weapon. He saw a prisoner, just like him. Then the power in the room flickered. The screen turned red. A message appeared. Emotion threshold incomplete. Termination pending. Jace felt his chest tighten. They're going to shut us down, he said. Saraxa nodded. Unless what? Saraxa stepped closer. She placed a small black disc in Jace's palm. This is my override key. It gives you access to their central protocol. If you activate it, we can stop the test, escape, disappear. Jace stared at it. What's the catch? He asked. Saraxa's voice dropped to a whisper. If you activate it, I will be marked as a traitor forever. They will hunt me. Jace looked down at the disc. It was warm, almost like it had a pulse of its own. You're willing to give all that up? He asked. For you? Saraxa whispered. Yes. Silence. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Jace asked the question he was most afraid of. Was any of this real? Or was it all part of the experiment? Saraxa didn't lie. In the beginning, it was a mission. But somewhere along the way, it became something more. I stayed when I was told to leave. I disobeyed orders. I fought to be assigned to you again. Her voice broke. I stayed because I believed in the person you were, and I needed to know if I still mattered to you at all. Jace's eyes softened. For the first time since the test began, he didn't feel alone. He didn't feel like a lab rat, or a soldier, or a broken machine. He felt seen. The screen flashed again. 1:11:20 remaining. Jace took the override key and looked at Saraxa. Then let's finish this. Saraxa gave the faintest smile, the first real one he had ever seen on her face. As they walked toward the control panel together, shoulder to shoulder, Jace whispered, if this is what they call a test, then maybe it's time we both failed it, on purpose. The ones who watch. The override key slid into the control panel with a soft click. Jace held his breath as the screen lit up. Dozens of systems came online. Locked doors, hidden cameras, surveillance satellites orbiting above. For the first time since this nightmare began, he had access. Saraxa stood beside him, calm but alert. This is it, she said. Once you hit execute, they'll know. Jace glanced at the blinking red button labeled Disengage Protocols. Above it, the countdown still ticked. 0:58:42. Do it, Saraxa said quietly. We don't have much time. Jace pressed the button. The entire room shook. Lights blinked across the outpost. Doors opened in far corners. Hidden rooms powered down. The cloaking field around the base dropped. Far above them, in the sky, a small fleet of serene ships shimmered into visibility. They had been watching the whole time. Within seconds, alarms blared across the quarters. They're coming, Saraxa whispered. Jace turned to her. Why are they so afraid of this test ending? Because they never expected anyone to pass it, she replied. Just then, a deep voice echoed through the room. Not from speakers, but from inside their minds. Subject 14 and Commander Saraxa, you have violated Observer Directive 6. Surrender immediately or be neutralized. Jace winced. The voice was heavy, cold, inhuman. Saraxa looked up at the ceiling. They're speaking from the core. The core? Jace asked. Saraxa nodded. The central mind of the council. It watches everything. Feels everything. It controls the tests, the memories, even the disappearances. You mean Male, Lione, the others. They weren't taken by death, Saraxa said. They were removed from the scenario, digitally extracted. Their minds are still alive, trapped inside the system. Chase's jaw clenched. Then we get them back. Syraxa paused. There's only one way. We have to reach the control core on this outpost. But it's underground and locked. Jace picked up his pistol. Then we go through. Syraxa smirked, spoken like a real failure of their system. Suddenly, the ceiling cracked. A bright beam of light broke through, followed by the high-pitched whir of alien drones descending. They looked like floating spears, sleek, fast, and armed. Jace pulled Syraxa behind a console just as one drone fired a plasma bolt, scorching the floor where they had stood seconds ago. "They're not waiting for surrender," he said. "No," Syraxa said, pulling out her twin daggers. "They never planned to." She leaped up, her movements smooth and sharp. She spun through the air, slashing two drones apart in seconds. Sparks flew, and parts hit the ground with a heavy clang. Jace fired at the others, covering her. They fought like a single unit, silent, focused, and driven by more than just survival. They were fighting for something real now. Finally, after 10 brutal minutes, the drones fell silent. The room was a mess of wires, smoke, and broken glass. Jace's arm bled from a grazing shot. Syraxa's shoulder was bruised, but she stood tall. "We need to go now," she said, already moving. They made their way through the corridor, deeper into the outpost. Jace had never been in this part before. It felt ancient. The walls were no longer human metal, but smooth black stone. The symbols etched into them glowed faintly as they passed. "This isn't part of the base," Jace whispered. "This is older. It was built before humans even arrived on this planet." Syraxa said. "The council placed the test chambers on top of what used to be a prison." Jace looked at her. "A prison for what?" "Emotions," she said. They reached a massive door. A scanner blinked on its side. Syraxa pressed her hand to it. A soft chime. The door opened. Inside, a wide circular room waited, walls filled with cables, floating data cubes, and at the center, a massive glowing sphere. The core. It pulsed like a heartbeat, but not warm or human. Cold, machine-like. It seemed to breathe without air. As they entered, the voice returned. "You were meant to prove that peace is impossible. You were designed to break. You failed your purpose." Syraxa stepped forward. "No, you failed to understand us." She raised the override key. The core's glow flickered. Then the voice hissed, angry now. "If you shut me down, you erase everyone in the system. Are you willing to kill them, just for your freedom?" Jace froze. He looked at Syraxa. "Is that true?" Syraxa swallowed hard. "No, it's lying. The minds are trapped. Shutting down the core won't kill them. It will release them." "Are you sure?" "I believe it," she said. "That's enough for me." Jace nodded. He stepped forward. Together, they inserted the override key. A blinding light filled the room. The core screamed, not in sound, but inside their minds. It fought back with images, memories, pain. But Jace held firm. He remembered every face, every word, every piece of who he was. He wasn't just Subject 14. He was human. And Syraxa wasn't just a commander. She was more. Then, silence. The lights dimmed. The sphere cracked. And for the first time, the system was quiet. Syraxa sank to her knees. Jace caught her. They had done it. But it wasn't over yet, because the real world was still watching. And now, they had to face it. Only one remains. The silence that followed the shutdown of the core was unlike anything Jace had ever known. No voices in his mind. No countdowns. No commands. Just silence, and Syraxa's slow, steady breathing beside him. The core, once the ever-watching eye of the Xyrene Council, was cracked and dim. Faded energy sparked from its broken shell, like the last breath of a dying god. Its light had powered the illusions, controlled the tests, twisted their memories. Now it was gone. Jace knelt next to Syraxa, who was still on the floor, her face pale, her body shaking slightly. She wasn't injured, not physically, but the effort of holding the override, of defying the Council's command programming. They had taken something from her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said softly. Syraxa gave a weak smile. "No, we did." The hidden chamber around them was beginning to shift. The black stone walls flickered, like layers of false reality peeling back. Jace turned and saw the symbols on the walls change into glowing streams of code. "Look," Syraxa whispered. "They're being released." Jace followed her gaze. On the chamber's walls, the data cubes once filled with locked identities were now dissolving. Souls, memories, minds finally freed from the system. Jace watched in silence as names he never knew, and a few he did. Male, Lionne, even the mysterious Relaxia, appeared and faded like smoke on glass. They weren't dead. They had just been lost. And now, they were waking up, all across the stars. Then came a low tremor beneath their feet. Jace turned. What was that? Syraxa stood slowly, wiping her blade on her leg. "The fleet. They're coming." "Wait, I thought you said we stopped them." "We stopped the core," she said, eyes sharp again. "But the Serene Council, they're still out there, watching. And now that their machine is broken, they'll come in person." A panel slid open behind them. A glowing escape tunnel, narrow and steep, pulsed with blue light. Jace looked at her. "We run." Syraxa stared up at the collapsing ceiling. "No, we choose." Jace followed her into the passage. The walls of the old outpost trembled around them. The once silent halls now echoed with the sound of distant ships entering the atmosphere. The Serene were fast, faster than Jace imagined. Within minutes, they would swarm the entire outpost. But Jace wasn't afraid anymore. He had remembered everything. And what mattered now wasn't war. It wasn't tests. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. They reached the surface. The sky above Velthora was lit by fire and steel. Council ships, shaped like daggers, slicing through clouds. Soldiers would come next. Thousands of them. Jace turned to Syraxa. "We can't fight them all." "No," she said, "but we can disappear." She handed him a small silver disc, a beacon. "It's keyed to an old outpost I used years ago," she explained. "No one remembers it. Off-grid. We can stay hidden. Start again." Jace took it. "You're ready to leave your entire life behind." She gave a faint smile. "I left it the moment I chose you." Jace opened the emergency transmitter on his wrist. With a tap, the beacon activated. A small personal ship, unregistered, untraceable, decloaked on the cliff nearby. They ran for it, wind howling around them. Just as they reached the entrance, Syraxa stopped. She turned back. In the distance, council ships were landing. Black figures poured out, spreading like insects across the broken outpost. Syraxa stared at them, not with fear, but with quiet pride. "They'll never understand what we've done," she said. "They don't need to," Jace replied, "because they'll never find us." Inside the ship, everything was simple. Quiet. No weapons, no control panels built to manipulate, just a home. Small, warm, and honest. As the engines warmed, Jace looked at Syraxa. "You think we can make something out there?" he asked. "Something that's real?" Syraxa sat beside him. "I don't know," she said, "but I'd rather spend the rest of my life trying than live one more day pretending." The ship lifted off. Below, the outpost collapsed, swallowed by time, dust, and fire. The council would search. They would rage. They would try to rebuild the core, to restart the tests. But something had changed. A subject had refused to break, and a commander had chosen love over loyalty. As the ship pierced the clouds and entered open space, Jace looked out at the stars. He whispered, almost to himself, 5 alien women entered my quarters, but only one remained by dawn. Syraxa smiled, watching him. That's because I never planned to leave, she said. And they vanished into the stars. Free, alive, and finally, truly human.